Namaste, fam. I thought I'd come here and use this platform because Instagram seems to be deleting some of my videos and it seems to cut off after like 2 or 3 minutes. So I thought I'd come here and load my videos here. Um, so the last video that I had posted was about Sassy. And I call him Sassy, but you might know him as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So at the time, I didn't know what was going on until maybe 12 or 13 years later when I was watching Ancient Aliens. That used to be my favorite show at the time. So it all started because my daughter came home. She was very excited. She had an assignment to do. She had a book report to do, and she chose to do it on Black Panthers or cougars. And so we headed out the next morning. We were walking to the half price bookstore, and on the way there, we kept hearing footsteps. And so I just thought it was like joggers or people that wanted to um, exercise. Sorry, it's my kitten. He's at that phase where he just likes to just attack all the time. Anyways, so we kept hearing the footsteps. So I waited a few times, and then I asked my daughter. I said, "Do you hear that?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "What do you hear?" And she says, "Footsteps, but it's nobody." So she validated what I was hearing. So then we get to the half price bookstore, and when we get there, she changes her mind. She wants to do it on the Choctaw Nation people. So we get to the kids section, and I locate the books, but they're way high up on the top shelf. So in the kids section, there was like a table and a play area and stuff like that. So she was sitting there. So I went down to the end of the aisle to like flag down somebody to help us get the books from the top shelf. And I saw the doors open, and in comes in this like 8 foot tall Native American, and we locked eyes, and he headed straight for us. So I walked back towards my daughter, and he comes to the children's section, and he looks at me and he looks at my daughter, and he asked me, "Oh, what are y'all doing here?" And I told him, and he says, "Oh, I'm Choctaw Indian." But at the time, I didn't really engage with in conversations with men much because her father was a little creepy, and I'll just leave it at that. So, but he had an understanding, and so he grabbed the books for us, and then we said our goodbyes, and we said nice to meet you to each other, and that was the end of that. So now it's Monday, and I didn't have to work that day, so I said, okay, let me go out to the back patio and clean it up because her dad and his entourage would always leave like trash out there. So I said, okay, let me go out and clean the patio. So I open the door, and I hear this huge rustling in the woods, and I look up, and I see the large hind legs and a long black tail and in the bushes. And so I quickly run back inside and close the door. So my daughter comes home, and I usually used to let her go outside and play outside. And I said, no, not today, because you know that black cat in your book, well, it's outside. So now her dad comes home with his entourage, and I said, hey, be careful out there because there's a Black Panther out there, and they're all laughing at me. They're like, we don't have Black Panthers here in Texas. We have mountain lions. I said, okay, whatever. So they're out there, having a good time or whatever. So after a while, I go out there and to chill with them a little bit. And so from my back patio, there's like a span of like 7 to 9 feet of a grassy area. And then there's a chain link fence, and then it was woods, a big span of woods. And in between the apartment complex, there was no barriers. So we called it the corridor because there's no barriers in between the apartment complexes. And we used to like to walk the corridor and go down to the large pond and go fish and stuff like that. So before all these events started to happen, I heard her father say to his friend, "You're nothing but the devil." And after that, it got super quiet. And then we started to hear and see down the corridor the trees rustling and wind coming. And when it hit us, it was super freezing cold air. And this was in summer. So it hit us, and then we started to hear these large trees crashing in the woods. And it stopped to where we were, and when it stopped, it these two large orange orbs turned on, and I said, I told you there's a cat in there. And so it didn't make sense because um, like where it was in these woods, there's a large ravine, and I'm not sure how deep it was, but in between uh, the, the banks of this ravine was this large tree, because sometimes her dad, or I would go with him too sometimes in the morning to walk my daughter to school, and he used to like to cut through the woods. And so there was this like large tree. I mean, it was huge. The circumference of it was huge. And so it was in between the banks. So it acted as a bridge. And I'm just like, I used to always look at it and be like, who did this? Like, who put this here? So anyways, but after this, I was like, you are not ever going to walk her through the woods ever, ever again. I don't care how good of a hunter you are. You're not walking her through the woods ever again. So anyway, so we're looking up at these orange orbs, and it's looking at us, and we would forget about it, and we would go on about our business, and periodically we would look up and it would still be there. And so we're watching it, it's watching us. And then I remember the last time I looked up, it was gone, and I kind of felt sad. Well, now I go back inside and to put my daughter to sleep, and her dad comes in, and he's like yelling, like, come outside, come outside. So I go outside, and now we're going down the other side of the corridor to these other apartment complexes. And he looks at me and he's like, what is that? And he was like, is that the moon? And I said, no, the moon is over there. I don't know what that is. But it was lighting up the whole forest floor. And so I said, okay, I got to go back because my daughter's by herself now at the home. So now it's like 12, 13 years later, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching Ancient Aliens. And the title was, I think it's Bigfoot and UFOs, or UFO and Bigfoot, or something like that. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and like every single thing that they say of people's stories or encounters with Bigfoot are like seeing either a UFO before or after they see Bigfoot. And I would have never put those two together, but they did a great job because it was my story. And so, yeah, the orange orbs, seeing Bigfoot with animals like they're shapeshifters, and the wind, all of that happened. And so for some reason, I linked that 8-foot tall Native American with Bigfoot because they talked about people being shapeshifters or whatever. So I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, oh my God, is that what happened that day? Like, did I have an encounter with Bigfoot and I didn't know? So that was awesome. So then later on, it's about maybe 3 or 4 years later, we moved to another, well, I've moved many times in between that time and watching Ancient Aliens. So now we moved to another apartment complex next to some woods again. And every time someone new would come over, my daughter or my ex would like for me to tell them my weird stories. So I started to tell my daughter's boyfriend about the Bigfoot story. And so he got all excited, and he was like, I wish I could see one. So I was like, okay, let's go walking down into the woods. And so we're walking towards the woods, and they're like maybe 10 feet in front of me walking. And I feel something like drop on my head, and I'm like, looking up, and it's crows, and they're dropping rocks on my head. And so I yell up towards my daughter and her boyfriend. I'm like, look. And as I'm telling them what's going on, it happens again, and they're like, what the crap? Like, what? So I'm like, okay, you know what? I think they're trying to tell us don't go any further into the woods. So we start to leave out the woods, and at the edge of the woods, I was like, okay, Sassy, if this is you, leave the stick at the back of my door. And so the next morning, I'm all excited and I want to go out and I want to see the stick. And so I don't see the stick, but at the corner of my eye, I catch like this shimmer, and I look down, and perfectly sitting on top of a small leaf is this rock, like the same length and width of the leaf. And I'm like studying it, like trying to figure out how is this rock perfectly sitting on top of this leaf. You know, it's very flimsy, and I don't know how this is happening. Like, it's defying all physics, okay? And so I quickly think about Sassy, and at that time I started calling him Sassy. And there's like some inside jokes between me and my ex about Sassy. So anyways, so I thank Sassy. Thank you so much for warning me, because later on, um, my ex used to park his 18-wheeler truck right there on the side of those woods. And he said one time he was walking up to his truck, and he saw this like creature looking thing. It kind of looked like a cat, but then it looked like a hyena, and it was very, very large. So he was super afraid, and he hurried up and got in his truck and drove off. But he said it was super weird looking. So maybe Sassy was trying to warn us not to go any further into the woods, because maybe that creature was in there. Later on, I was looking up the duende. It's little people, and I found a video from the Lakota people, and she started to speak about the little people, but then it turned into a Bigfoot story. And she said that it was two of her male family members. They had to go get one of the horses, because he used to like to jump over the fence and like mate with the mare that was over there. So they were walking down to go get him, and they saw Bigfoot with two large black cats. So that validated it more for me, that yes, it was a Sasquatch that day. Because just by I didn't know at the time when all this stuff was going on that it was Bigfoot and it was a UFO. I didn't know any of this. I thought it was just the Black Panther, and I didn't know what the light was, or the crashing that was going on in the gust of wind. I didn't know that. But watching Ancient Aliens, it let me know, you know, the sequence or the events that happened to other people. And so so that's my story about Sassy. Also, the Lakota lady, she said that in her in I believe it was the Lakota people. I might be wrong, but she said that they're known to protect women and children, and so that made perfect sense to me, because at the time that this was going on, her my daughter's father wasn't that nice to us, so that made perfect sense. And sometimes I could feel Sassy, or like if there's a male around me, and they have ill intent, like a smell would come. So I heard that they throw off a smell to like deter men away or whatever. So thank you, Sassy. I love you. So I have some more stories to tell. I guess the next one I'll tell is about the time I had a premonition, and I jumped parallel realities, or dimensions, but I call it the ghost car story. Okay, love you, peace. Thank you.